And now, a special edition of Fox 26 News. Transgender athletes and the future of fair play.
Good morning, I'm Justin Willis. Thank you for joining us. We're taking this last hour of Great Day to focus on a story that's been unfolding all week. A controversial debate that sparked headlines nationwide and now center stage right here in the Central Valley. The CIF State Track and Field Camp Championship kicks off at Veterans Memorial Stadium in Clovis today. And among those competing, a transgender athlete whose participation has ignited a fierce public conversation. Our news team has been covering this story all week, talking with students, parents, lawmakers, and advocates on both sides of the issue. Right now, we're breaking down the rules and hearing from those closest to the competition. We also explore the bigger questions about fairness, inclusion, and the future of high school sports. Now, the student at the center of this controversy, 16-year-old A.B. Hernandez, a junior at Jurupa Valley High School in Southern California. Hernandez is an outspoken transgender athlete competing in girls track and field. After qualifying in 3 events at the preliminaries in triple, long, and high jump, Hernandez won 2 CIF titles in the triple and long jump at the Southern section just 2 weeks ago. At last weekend's Masters meet, Hernandez placed 4th in high jump in a tie with another athlete at over 1.5 meters. Now, the first place winner jumped 2 inches higher. In long jump, Hernandez placed first with a jump nearing 6 meters. In the second place, that was just less than 3 inches shy. Hernandez also placed first in the triple jump with a distance of more than 12 meters. So how do these numbers stack up to the boys' competition? Well, the high jump winner there reached over 2 meters. The long jump first place winner recorded over 7 meters. The triple jump first place winner recorded nearly 15 meters. Now we move up to this week, where President Trump set off a firestorm Tuesday morning, threatening California schools over the issue of transgender athletes. In the post to his Truth Social platform, President Trump said he would hold back federal funding if his executive order is not obeyed. In February, the president signed an order that bans transgender women from competing in sports. In his Tuesday post, he wrote, quote, "I am ordering local authorities, if necessary, to not allow the transitioned person to compete in the state finals." Now, the president also specifically called out Governor Gavin Newsom, who recently caught flack after saying men in women's sports is deeply unfair on his podcast. The governor spoke with right-wing pundit Charlie Kirk about the issue on the premiere episode of his podcast in March. Kirk specifically called out A.B. Hernandez.
Is deeply unfair.
Would you speak out against this young man, A.B. Hernandez, who right now is going to win the state championship in the long jump? I can see you wrestling with it.
No, I'm not wrestling. I'm not wrestling with the fairness issue. I totally agree with you, but completely fair on the issue of fairness. I completely agree. So that's easy to call out, the unfairness of that. There's also a humility and a grace, that these poor people are more likely to commit suicide, have anxiety and depression. And the way that people talk down to vulnerable communities is an issue that I have a hard time with as well. So both things I can hold in my hand. How can we address this issue with the kind of decency that I think, is inherent in you, but not always expressed on the issue?
Well, the governor went on to say that not all of his energy is focused on this matter, and it only involves a small number of athletes. But he says the right has made trans athletes a bigger issue. Data from the California Department of Education reveals there are more than 1.5 million high school students here in California. The NCAA estimates just 2% of students are awarded athletic scholarships to compete in college. Last year, NCAA President Charlie Baker told a Senate panel there were fewer than 10 transgender athletes who were competing in college sports. Later this hour, we'll have a little breakdown of how the organization has changed their rules on the topic since the president signed his executive order. Meanwhile, the CIF has now clarified changes it's made to its policy over the issue that will impact this weekend's event and beyond. It's now allowing biological females who would have earned the next qualifying spot for the state meet at their section's qualifying events to compete. On Friday, if necessary, any biological female who would have earned the next qualifying spot in the high jump, triple jump, and long jump events will still advance to the final. And any biological female who would have earned a specific placement on the podium will also be awarded the medal for that place. This means if A.B. Hernandez places first, second, or third, there will be another biological female who will also earn the same spot. Now, in response, Governor Newsom's director of communications told Fox 26 News, CIF's proposed pilot is a reasonable, respectful way to navigate a complex issue without compromising competitive fairness, a model worth pursuing. The governor is encouraged by this thoughtful approach. Now, moving forward to today, groups are already in town planning to protest. Earlier this week, Fox 26 reporter Myra Franco broke down the long history between the mom of the athlete at the center of this story and some of their most vocal critics.
I have a right to speak truth. Boys are boys, girls are girls. Your son does not belong competing against those girls, period. What a coward of a woman you are allowing that.
What a coward of a woman
This heated exchange between two mothers happened a little over 2 weeks ago during the California Interscholastic Federation's D3 track and field prelims at Yorba Linda High School. On one side, Nerita Hernandez, the mother of A.B. Hernandez, who identifies as a transgender female athlete for Drupa Valley High School. On the other, Sonia Shaw, the president of the Chino Valley Unified School District Board of Education. The issue, whether transgender athletes should be allowed to compete in girls' sports.
This particular athlete, he's been competing against girls even in our own district and surrounding districts, which is wrong because it's taking their rights away. And we've been very vocal on not just the person, but anybody who decides to do that.
Shaw gained national attention after Chino Valley enacted a policy to notify parents if their child requested to change their name, pronoun, or gender identity at school. Now she and a group of parents say they won't stay silent when it comes to this issue either.
These girls are going through a lot of emotional distress. I mean, they're going through opportunities ripped.
Fox 26 News reached out to Nerita Hernandez, the mother of the athlete in question. She did not have a comment at this time. However, on April 8th, both she and AB spoke in front of the Placentia Yorba Linda Unified School Board about the issue.
We're supposed to treat all children equal, and we're supposed to protect our children. What they're failing to do is protect.
How are you going to save girls' sports when the team that I'm on you're not reaching out to? If you are going to save someone, it should be the girls on my team who all love me and support me, and they've told me over and over again that they want me on this team. They wouldn't do anything different to not have me on this team.
My child does not change in the locker rooms. And locker rooms, from what I remember when I was in school, we would go in there, have like 3 minutes to change, and we were not stripping down to nothing. So them alleging that these kids are seeing penises, false. When children go to their restrooms, they have their own stalls. They're not going into a men's restroom, or at least my child is not, because my child identifies as a she. And I feel they're being attacked, and I don't think it's right.
Myra Franco, Fox 26 News.
Shaw says her district, Chino Valley, sent a letter to President Trump several weeks ago officially asking him to intervene and pull federal funding. Shaw is also running for state superintendent of schools. A little later on, we're going to show you an extended portion of our interview with Shaw. Now, today's meet starts with qualifying events at 3, and parents and supporters, protesters, well, they're already in town. Alexis Govea joins me now live outside of Veterans Memorial Stadium in Clovis, where the event is taking place. Alexis?
Yes, Justin, a lot of people are expected to be out here later today, so gates open at 2 p.m. And earlier this week, we contacted the CIF to see if there were security concerns ahead of the event. They told us they were working with Clovis Unified to ensure appropriate levels of security. We did ask whether other law enforcement agencies such as Clovis PD or CHP would be helping provide additional security, and the Clovis PD is in communication with both the CIF and CUSD, and they have additional officers at the two-day event to ensure athletes, attendees, as well as staff remain safe, just as they've done in previous years. Of course, we're going to be sure to update you if we learn anything new. If you are going to be in this area today or tomorrow, expect busier roads around the Buchanan campus. A little later in this hour here on Great Day, you're going to be hearing from some people on both sides of this controversy who will be here at this event. For now, though, I'm going to toss things back to you in the studio. Reporting live for This Morning in Clovis, I'm Alexis Govea, Fox 26 News.
Still ahead, the president threatened to cut federal funding for California, but did not specify from where. After the break, we'll take a look at the billions of dollars the state gets from the government and how the likeliest cuts could impact your students. Plus, how lawmakers are reacting to the issue across the state and nation.
Some of this is being watched as it may or may not move through court action.
Breaking down where the current law stands right now and what the future holds for fairness in sports. Welcome back to our special highlighting the nationwide debate on transgender athletes competing in girls' sports. On Tuesday, the president threatened to pull federal funding from the state, but he wasn't specific about what would be pulled. According to the state's attorney general's office, California is expected to receive $168 billion in federal funding this fiscal year. That's more than a third of the state budget, not including funding for the state's public college and university system. Considering this issue involves student athletes, we wanted to see how pulling federal funds would affect California's Department of Education. Fox 26 News anchor Liz Gonzalez breaks down the numbers.
According to the Legislative Analyst's Office, California received around $8 billion in federal funding for the 2024-2025 school year. While it sounds like a lot, that makes up just under 6% of all K-12 funding in California. Most of the California Department of Education's money comes from the state's general fund and property taxes. According to the California Department of Education, of those $8 billion, $33 million was in one-time funding, still tied to COVID response and the American Rescue Plan. $2.4 billion federal dollars was spent on helping students from low-income families at school districts and charter schools. Almost $1.5 billion in federal funds help school districts provide special education and services to children with disabilities. Other notable programs that receive federal funding include $298 million for English learners and immigrant students, $237 million for grants to support teachers, $28 million for after-school programs, and almost $6 million went to rural and low-income schools. Smaller rural districts typically rely even more of their budget on federal dollars since there isn't as big of a local tax base.
President Trump already took aim at cutting federal funding for schools in California earlier this year over its diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. A federal judge blocked that directive. Equality California is also speaking out against the president's move to withhold federal funding from the state over this issue. It called it, quote, a blatant abuse of executive power. The president is attempting to punish his entire state for holding up its values of inclusion while targeting and marginalizing one student to advance a discriminatory political agenda. No child should ever be singled out for who they are, and no state should have critical resources held hostage in the process. Stay with us because we'll have a full interview with a representative from their group a little later on in the show. The Justice Department is now saying it's launching its own investigation aimed at determining whether California is violating the civil rights of female student athletes by allowing a trans athlete to compete with them.
The investigation by the Justice Department targets the California Interscholastic Federation and the Jurupa Unified School District. It says the organizations allowed the student in question, A.B. Hernandez, to compete in the high, long, and triple jump. A.B. has qualified for the state finals in all three events this weekend in Clovis. The DOJ says that the CIF is, quote, depriving girls of equal athletic opportunities, citing protections under Title IX. The federal civil rights law prohibits sexual discrimination in any educational program or activity that receives federal funding. And according to the DOJ, it explicitly acknowledges fundamental differences in the way girls and boys participate in sports. In February, the U.S. Department of Education said it was launching an investigation after the CIF allowed trans athletes to compete. Now the two federal departments will coordinate their investigations.
Now, the DOJ also said it's getting involved in a lawsuit against the Riverside Unified School District, which it says allowed a trans athlete to displace a girl on a cross-country team. Well, just last week, the DOJ said it's also received complaints from female high school athletes in the state of Oregon, and it's launched an investigation there, too. So what exactly is Title IX? Well, it's a federal law passed in 1972 that says schools get money from the government cannot treat people differently based on their sex. Now, that means boys and girls must have equal access to things like sports teams and facilities, classes and programs, scholarships and funding, and must be protected from harassment and discrimination. Now, Title IX does not specifically mention transgender students. Over the years, different presidential administrations have interpreted it in different ways, especially when it comes to gender identity. Under the Obama administration, the U.S. Department of Education said Title IX protections do apply to transgender students. Those guidelines were rolled back under the first Trump administration, but then put back in place during the Biden administration. And it was all backed up by a 2021 Supreme Court decision involving workplace rights and the Department of Education, which extended that logic to schools. So what's the current status? Well, there are debates and lawsuits across the country. Right now, 24 states have laws that ban transgender students from participating in sports consistent with their gender identities. 2 more states, Georgia and Montana, have bans that will go into effect in July and October. And at least 6 state bans on transgender athletes have been blocked either in part or completely by court order. According to U.S. Census data, people who identify as transgender account for less than 1% of the nation's population. Now, how does California's state law look into comparison to federal laws on this issue? Fox 26 reporter Christina Rodriguez breaks down the law as it currently stands.
I'm a mom who ran for school board because of issues like this, with girls not having privacy and fairness in their sports and all the crazy stuff going on with kids.
And this is what the law says. AB 1266, also known as the School Success and Opportunity Act, was signed into law by Governor Jerry Brown in 2013. The bill restates anti-discrimination laws that already existed, clarifying the rights of transgender students in public schools. Here's where it gets complicated. The last line of the bill reads as follows. A pupil shall be permitted to participate in sex-segregated school programs and activities, including athletic teams and competitions, and use facilities consistent with his or her gender identity, irrespective of the gender listed on the pupil's records. Basically, gender identification does not have to match what was assigned at birth, which is in line with a state law called the Gender Recognition Act. A section of California's education code equates gender and sex, and also includes gender identity and gender expression. The same section defines gender expression as a person's gender-related appearance and behavior, whether or not they're stereotypically associated with the person's assigned sex at birth. Now, how has the CIF handled this in the past? According to guidelines posted to the agency's website, all students are allowed to compete in CIF activities consistent with their gender identity as long as they have been granted eligibility to participate in interscholastic sports. Christina Rodriguez, Fox 26 News.
Still ahead, both supporters of LGBTQ rights and those fighting for fairness in girls' sports are rallying ahead of today's competition in Clovis. Here are full interviews with leaders on both sides of this issue after the break. Throughout the week, members of the Fox 26 team have been working hard to bring you perspective from both sides of this issue. We want to share a couple of extended interviews to give you context on this quickly developing story. We'll start with an interview with Sonia Shaw, the president of the Chino Valley Unified School District's Board of Education. Fox 26 News Director Jim Jacobs asked her about interactions with A.B. Hernandez and her mother.
Now, tell me about your experience with athlete A.B. Hernandez and what you've seen personally, what you've witnessed, and your experience.
Yeah, so, with this particular athlete, he's been competing against girls even in our own district and surrounding districts, which is wrong because it's taking their rights away. And we've been very vocal on not just the person, but anybody who decides to do that. We've been saying, no, this enough is enough. Of course, there's the California law and there's the coward Newsroom and the rest of them that hide behind that. But, when Trump came back and he did the Title IX and put it back to what it was supposed to be, because remember, Biden was trying to reinvent it and pervert it, in my opinion. We went full force. I mean, I'm a mom who ran for school board because of issues like this, with girls not having privacy and fairness in their sports and all the crazy stuff going on with kids. And when we were vocal about it, his mother came directly and attacked those like myself and, Jessica Tapia. We've gotten a cease and desist. We've, been verbally attacked at the meet, and, they try to claim that they're the victim when our daughters are the victims. And, recently also our district, I have been given a copy that the mother submitted a formal complaint on myself and actually one of our female athletes, which is disappointing because the mom, she's gone on video, she's gaslighted girls. It's sad. It's like right is right and wrong is wrong. And what's happening to our girls is wrong. And that's where we're taking a stand and saying no. You've seen school districts all across California. I authored a resolution, and I'm so excited that school districts all across California are either passing it or bringing it forward, whether they pass or not. These are issues that, next election cycle, we will definitely let the public know and switch those seats to those that want to protect, common sense. We need to bring common sense back again. And our district also sent a letter to Trump officially asking him to intervene and pretty much pull the funding. Like, Newsom's he's going to play and dance around. He admitted it was unfair, but he has no intention of fixing this. He's part of the problem. You've seen the legislators that, answer to him. They've referred to us parents as Nazis, which is actually very disturbing, especially, to those that have had family members endure that kind of crazy violence. This is just common sense. This should not even be an issue. If they were to allow fairness in sports and allow girls their own rightful spots in their sports, then this would all go away. But they want to pick this as the hill that they'll die on. That's fine. We've already picked that hill that we're gonna die on as well. I'm not sure if you're aware, we have activists coming after us, of course, with their normal death threats and, violent, posts and stuff. And that's okay, because we would be cowards just like CIF and the rest of them if we walked away and didn't do what's right for our daughters.
Have you had any interactions with CIF yourself where you've met with them or gone to a meeting? What is their, and kind of bringing that forward to today when they put out a statement where they've changed one of their policies going into this weekend's event. So what does that tell you about their mindset and where this might be going?
Well, to be fair, I do know a couple people in CIF, and they do want to do what's right. Of course, I want them to be as bold as some of us, and come out and say that they do agree that this is wrong, but they refuse. I have been told, I've actually spoke to a few of them, that are sitting members, that they said that they were afraid that the Department of Ed would the California Department of Ed, let's be clear. There's two Department of Eds that we're talking about here. The California Department of Ed, head by Tony Thurmond, would do something to even try to pull the funding. But at what point is money worth, destroying someone's life? And they're destroying our daughters' lives. So yes, I have spoke to a few of them. I have been to their, yearly meetings in Long Beach along Sophia, Lorey, and a few other really brave people that have been going there and asking them to stand up and do what's right, even to bring a resolution forward and say that you want fairness for our girls. I mean, just showing our girls that you're trying to fight it. Today, when they put that notice on, it sends mixed feelings because they're admitting it's wrong. But then again, you're offering girls an invite back to where their rightful spots. To what? To compete against a male again? This is absurd. This is gaslighting, of course. And at the same token, it's like at some point, somebody's just got to pull it and say enough is enough. And that's where that's what we're trying to do. You have the Sign Girls Sports petition that Sophia, Lorey under the California Family Council is doing. You have Jessica Tapia working for Advocates in Faith and Freedom, and they're trying to bring a lawsuit to challenge AB 1266, which most people are not aware. That's the California law that allows this insanity. So that's where we're trying to put pressure at all points until finally our girls win. We're not giving up. We know this is a marathon.
And you can watch the full 14-minute interview with Shaw over on our YouTube page. But now for another perspective. Here's Fox 26 reporter Myra Franco's full interview with George Reyes Salinas with Equality California.
Alrighty, so what are your thoughts right now with the controversy currently happening? Yeah, unfortunately, we're seeing another attack from Donald Trump and his administration. We know that they've been attacking transgender people for since the campaign trail, right? Even before that, since his first term as in office, and now we're seeing it escalate to transgender youth, and not only talking about their healthcare access, but now we're seeing this play out in schools, in sports. And now we know we're seeing this threat come up of threatening to withhold federal funding from California because California is in support and inclusive of all students.
And kind of talk to me about the bullying that trans athletes face in these type of scenarios, especially now that we're involving the youth.
Absolutely. We know that transgender youth already face very heavy mental health issues when talking about their self-confidence, their self expressions, and being able to navigate school in general as being a younger person. So they are facing more of a mental health component and stress that is attached to their well-being. So when we're seeing the Trump administration and others launch attacks on transgender kids, they are putting this target on them for bullying and harassment, not only in schools, but also online, and especially when it's being highlighted in news and specific students that transgender students that already don't have a lot of representation in sports in general. These attacks are putting real kids at risk, and every child deserves to be safe. And we've been saying that from day one.
I know we've covered this before. I want to say the last time I covered it as a reporter was 2 years ago, but would you say because of the administration, it's starting to rise, the attacks, we're seeing it more, people are feeling more open to express their thoughts?
Yes, absolutely. When we see the Trump administration and other elected officials, even share misinformation, not only state misinformation, which we see this from Donald Trump almost every day, but when you see other elected officials share misinformation, that continues to add to the potential bullying and harassment that kids are going to be facing in schools or online.
And what do you have to say to those who call it a unfair advantage? I guess I've been seeing that everywhere, kind of in quotations. What do you guys have to say in regards to that stance?
I think it's plain and simple that we all want young people to be able to participate in sports and sports to be fair. We all want that. We all know that sports should be fair, and we all know the benefits that sports brings, not only as to adults, but how fundamental that is for youth. And we want them to be fair, and we want them to be safe. That's why sport associations make rules taking into account factors such as sporting association, sport, age, and skill level. And that is how that fairness is achieved, which is how CIF has been handling this whole situation.
And what's a message out there for all trans athlete students who are watching this story tonight? What do you guys have to say to them?
To the trans athletes watching this right now, it's really important for them to know that people have their back. People are there to speak on their behalf, to work for their freedoms, to be accepted. We're not turning our backs on them. California will not be turning their backs on them. We need to ensure that they're safe and that they feel protected, and then they feel that there is a place for them to belong here, because unfortunately Donald Trump is making it very clear that they are under threat, and we should not tolerate that, especially not as Californians and the values that we have here in our state.
What do you have to say to those who are obviously opposed? We've been seeing it all on the airwaves, who say, okay, maybe we should have a third category for trans athletes. What are your guys' thoughts in regards to them kind of pushing towards that angle?
Again, going back to how this plays out with CIF and what the rules have been in place, we all want sports to be fair and sports to be safe. And we all support policies that create more of those opportunities for kids to play sports, right? We want to make sure that kids have that opportunity. So again, we look forward to working with CIF and their ongoing progress of determining how to include and support transgender and all student athletes. We know that there is this pilot program, one-time pilot program coming this weekend. And again, we are hoping to continue working with CIF in their ongoing progress on this.
Well, is there anything else that maybe I missed, or a message that you really want to be taken away for a newscast tonight that you want on our airwaves?
No, I think, just really stressing that we all want kids to be able to play sports, to participate in sports, and we all understand that sports need to be fair. That has never been the question. CIF has had implementations for more than a decade about transgender youth. This is nothing new. What we're seeing that's new is unfortunately the attacks against transgender youth from Donald Trump and his base.
Still ahead, Clovis leaders now speaking out on CIF's latest ruling on transgender athletes competing in today's events. A look inside yesterday's press conference and the response from LGBTQ advocates.
Welcome back. We are live here this morning in Clovis at Veterans Memorial Stadium, where we are continuing our Fox 26 News special. Gates open here at 2 p.m. So the CIF is the body in charge of the event, and it's working with Clovis Unified to make sure there's enough security. The organization, California Family Council, has been very vocal about what it says is the unfair treatment girls have been getting when it comes to sports. Group members say they are not sitting this one out and will be attending.
Again, it's heartbreaking as I'm getting texts, getting calls, and talking to the girls that are coming to me in tears because they're losing their spot due to a male. I will be there this weekend in Clovis. I know people from multiple different groups across the state of California, a lot of just moms and concerned citizens that are really focusing to save girls sports will be in attendance. So I think that the girls that are competing will see a large group there that are in support of them.
It was 2 years ago, Clovis Unified ran into the same issue. Two transgender athletes also had qualified for the CIF championship meet that was also held here at Veterans Memorial Stadium in Clovis. With the controversy leading up to it, the two transgender athletes did not show up. We did ask whether other law enforcement agencies such as Clovis PD or CHP would be helping provide additional security, and the Clovis Police Department is in communication with both the CIF and CUSD. And they have additional officers at the two-day event to ensure athletes, attendees, and staff remain safe, just as they have done in previous years. And we actually just got that news this morning regarding all of that information. So yesterday, several Clovis area leaders gathered at a press conference centered around this issue. Fox 26 reporter Brianda Lemus has more on the Clovis leaders who rallied together, calling the event unfair, and others voicing their support for trans inclusion in sports.
Today, I call on CIF to do the right thing. Updates 1 and 2 were not enough. But the third time can be the charm.
Dressed in pink to show support for young women, several Clovis city leaders came together to share their concerns about the controversy building this week. The debate surrounds A.B. Hernandez, a transgender athlete who is set to compete in girls' events at the CIF Track and Field Championship meet taking place Friday and Saturday.
Transgenderism is not something to be celebrated, but psychologically treated by mental health professionals. These are disturbed folks, and the charade has gone on for too long.
The girls competing tomorrow are not okay with this. They know it's unfair, and they don't want to compete against a boy.
Our predecessors worked so hard to claim a space and a presence for women in sports and to have equality in sports. Why have we gone backwards?
The CIF announced its decision to allow a transgender athlete to compete in 3 women's track and field events, despite an executive order by President Donald Trump. Stetler Brown, who is part of the LGBTQ community and an advocate, believes that LGBTQ individuals should be present when issues affecting their community are being discussed publicly. Brown attended the event to witness and represent his community during the conversation.
The speakers today truly believe what they said is that the person deserves to be treated with compassion. We would not be litigating this in the national and local media a couple days before the competition.
A.B. Hernandez's family put out a comment with LGBTQ Fresno saying, "I want people to cheer after A.B. hits the pit and or when A.B. receives her medal because it's usually me. So I want her to know she has a tribe behind her."
I think that if they want to show up to the athletes, they should show up for the show up and support the athletes, and that means all the athletes.
Clovis Mayor Pro Tem Diane Pierce is asking everyone who attends to treat all athletes with respect. But she's also calling out the CIF, saying it still has a third chance to, quote, make it right by removing biological males from girls' sports. Our special report here on Fox 26 News will continue after the break.
So we've talked about how the California Interscholastic Federation governs trans athletes, and now we're taking a look at how other major sports organizations have ruled on the matter. First, a look at the NCAA. Any student athlete is eligible to compete on a men's team regardless of sex assigned at birth or gender identity. There is one caveat to this rule. Athletes taking a banned substance, such as testosterone, must complete a medical exception process. Like the CIF, the rules are more specific for women's sports. An athlete assigned female at birth who has begun hormone therapy is not eligible to compete. If that were to happen, the team is subject to mixed team legislation and will not be eligible for championships. The participation policy for transgender students, adopted earlier this year, does not allow anyone assigned male at birth to compete on a women's team. The policy states that there are no waivers, and students who were assigned male at birth but have amended birth certificates are still not allowed to compete on women's teams. That rule also stands for individual competition, not just team-based competition. This is not the first conversation on transgender athletes to capture nationwide or even global attention. You may remember there were two openly trans athletes who competed at the Tokyo Summer Olympics in 2021. Laurel Hubbard, a weightlifter from New Zealand, and Quinn, a Canadian soccer player who identifies as non-binary. And, well, there have been more transgender Olympic athletes since, including track and field competitors. The International Olympic Committee's framework on fairness, inclusion, and non-discrimination on the basis of gender identity and sex variations covers this issue. This framework does not cover athletic eligibility. That is up to each competing nation to determine. The United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee has a set of guiding principles when it comes to transgender participation on Team USA athletes. The committee says participation should be available to everyone, and it is not fair if athletes cannot compete due to their gender identity. It also states it is not fair if an athlete would face unreasonable safety risks or a much reduced chance for success due to sex-linked physiology. The decision to allow trans athletes then falls into a sport-by-sport basis. Since our main topic today is focused on a track and field athlete, let's look at the Olympic-level organization overseeing this sport, specifically on the women's competition. USA Track and Field complies with the World Athletics eligibility regulations for transgender athletes. That policy requires certain medical benchmarks be achieved before an athlete may compete, and that includes 1. A signed declaration their gender identity is female. 2. The athlete must not have experienced male puberty past the onset stage, also known as Tanner Stage 2 or after age 12. 3. Since puberty, they must have continuously maintained a specific concentration of testosterone in their serum. And 4. They must maintain their serum concentration of testosterone at all times for as long as they wish to retain eligibility to compete in female sports. Once an athlete has satisfied these requirements, they cannot compete in the other sex classification. Still ahead, state funding is on the line after President Trump got involved in this weekend's track and field event. After the break, our interview with State Assembly member Chris Ward and why he believes the president's reaction has nothing to do with sports. And as we go to break, here is a live look from above Veterans Memorial Stadium in Clovis, where today's events are being held. Welcome back. Fox 26 spoke with California State Assembly member Chris Ward Wednesday. He represents the 78th Assembly District, which includes San Diego and El Cajon. More specifically to this issue, he currently serves as chair of the California Legislative LGBTQ Caucus. We asked him about the recent CIF rule changes, President Trump's reaction to the whole thing, and what, if anything, state legislators may feel they need to do about it. Ward told us he doesn't think the president's reaction was about transgender athletes in sports at all. He said he feels President Trump has other reasons for raising this issue at this time.
I'm very suspect, and I think anybody should be very suspect about what's really going on behind the curtain, because we know on the very same day that he posts this post on his Truth Social, you have, the interest Congress is trying to be able to pass bills that are going to gut Medicaid and food stamps and support for millions of Californians and tens of millions of Americans. You have him pardoning convicted felons that, were convicted by a court of law, robbing banks of tens of millions of dollars because he's associated with, because they are associated with his network, and I'm sure that was just in one day. So you always have to be suspect of what's going on behind the curtain. And every time this issue is really thrown out there, is it a distraction?
Are state legislators taking any preparations at all? Do they think they need to in relation to this?
There's no policy making that needs to be done here at the state capitol right now. So some of this is being watched as it may or may not move through court action. And our attorney general has been a steadfast guardian of our state constitution and state laws. And so we will see if anything gets traction and work to support the attorney general in those actions.
And again, the CIF rules change that were made to try to accommodate things. Do you feel that's a good move?
I think it's helping everybody kind of get through this moment so that everybody can finish the season out strong. And we'll see how that really plays out as far as everybody feeling about issues of fairness or security. But this athlete has come so far, deserves her chance to be able to finish strong as well. And it would then be able to take away the argument that somehow somebody else was not undercut or robbed of a medal.
Your last word then on this whole issue?
My final thoughts really are back with all the student athletes, and I wish the community of Clovis all the best as they have a very fun weekend.
And as Assembly Member Ward told our Monty Torres, state lawmakers intend to keep a close eye on the issue and lend whatever support they can to State Attorney General Rob Bonta to respond to any federal lawsuit should that become necessary. The Fox 26 special report on transgender athletes and the future of fair play will continue after the break. Welcome back. Among those planning to attend today's event, Clovis-based podcaster and social media activist Josh Fulfer. Fulfer operates on social media as Oreo Express. He posted this on X Tuesday saying if California continues to ignore President Trump's executive order banning males from competing in female sports, a male will compete against the girls for a state title. Now, Fulfer called on supporters to stand up for these girls and to protest at the track meet. LGBTQ Fresno is now encouraging people to support Hernandez, but not to hold a counter protest. On a post on Facebook, they say the family of Hernandez is asking people to show up and cheer her on without focusing on her being transgender. They're asking for no pride flags so the focus can be on supporting her athletic performance. They're also asking for people to not engage with protesters. Now, regardless of who shows up at the CIF track meet, well, triple digits are expected. 102 today, 105 tomorrow, and that triple digit heat has American Ambulance gearing up for a busy weekend. American Ambulance attends every year and, well, says its staff looks forward to the special event. Many of the company's employees' own children have participated. Paramedics, EMTs, and an ambulance will be on standby at the company's booth. They do recommend participants and guests eat the right nutrients, fruits, vegetables, and lots of fluids. Take your hats, your sunscreen, and extra water. They also say to take breaks under the shade and even hop in your car for a quick AC break to prevent heat exhaustion. American Ambulance says small children and the elderly are more susceptible to heat injuries. Heat exhaustion begins with ample sweat, but if your body temperature hits over 100 degrees, seek medical attention to avoid a heat stroke, which is serious and requires urgent medical attention. A second ambulance will be on standby and dispatched if needed, and anyone who needs assistance on or off the field for any injury is welcome to walk up to their booth for help. Now, several days ago, we opened a poll to viewers to hear your thoughts on if trans athletes should be allowed to compete in women's sports. And well, here's a look at the results. It's pretty overwhelming. After more than 1,600 votes, 95% of, say, someone assigned biologically male at birth should not be allowed to compete in female competition. And you can still vote on this right now at our website. Now, regardless of protesters and supporters, A.B. Hernandez will be at the CIF State Track and Field Championships at Buchanan High School today. She is set to compete this weekend in 3 events, and she could potentially return home with medals. She is seeded as the 21st ranked high jumper, 5th ranked long jumper, and 2nd ranked triple jumper. Tune in tonight to Fox 26 News at 10 for the latest developments on today's competition, and we're going to have updates all weekend long. Thank you so much for joining us for our special report on transgender athletes and the future of fair play. To all athletes competing in this weekend's competition, good luck.